All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Knutson. I am the financial secretary, I believe, and I will review the 2022 financial performance of the church, and we'll talk about our 2023 budget. I'll kind of walk through this, but feel free to interrupt me with questions, and I'll try to give you some color on the numbers, along with the rest of the church leadership team. I started in this role in September, I think it was, so some of the history may need to be patched in. So we'll go over the 2022 financial review and the proposed budget first. And so what I'll do is I'll start in the upper left-hand corner, talking about our 2022 financial performance. When you look at essentially our income, which is a combination of giving, our building use fees, including the Montessori fees, and then some miscellaneous other fees. So we had a very good year when it came to giving. Our actual giving was $390,000. See in that middle column there, 2022 actual against a budget amount of $383,000. So we exceeded our budget expectations by $7,100, which is good. So very generous church giving this year, and we'll talk about some additional giving the congregational made as well. Going down to expenses right beneath there, our expenses, inflation, some discretionary spending that we made, we actually spent more than what we expected in our budget. So our actual 2022 expenses was $389,000 against a budget of $383,000. I'll give you some color on areas where we decided to exceed that budget. So a couple areas where we spent more was in the property line item and the worship line item. Property line item involved spending dollars on the lighting in the parking lot. There were some lighting needs that we had to address. Instead of taking that out of the capital fund, we covered it in the budget, given the budget situation we were under, which was positive. So that's good. And then there were additional just general inflationary expenditures, heating, lighting, etc., that hit our budget, property budget as well, like we all have. The second area that we exceeded budget was in the worship line item. And that was, again, a discretionary spend to purchase the webcam and associated supporting technology so we could do live broadcasts. So that was, again, kind of a one-time, both those were kind of one-time expenditures, so not something systemic into our budget. So we exceeded our budget by $6,300. Net for the year, we had more giving than expected and more expenses than expected, but we ended up in the black by about $750, which is good. So credit to Pastor Brent and the rest of the church council for their stewardship of the budget. All right, now I'm going to move to the right in the same section on our 2023 budget. We've essentially looked at pending expenditures from 2023, as well as made some estimates on inflationary increases we needed to build in. And we looked at our proposed committed giving for the year. So let's talk about giving. Our projected giving for 2023 is $410,000, which is a 5% increase over 2022 actuals, which is a healthy increase. That is comprised of increased congregational giving and commitments, which we saw. But another really important aspect of our financial health is an increase in the Montessori lease. So the council really has done a good job in managing that Montessori lease, and they've agreed to an increase in that lease fee. So that really helps quite a bit as well. You see an 18% increase in projected receipts for building use there. So 5% increase in the giving. Now let's talk about the expenses. We're projecting our expense budget to increase to $410,000, which is a 5.2% increase over our actuals in 2022. And that's driven partly by we've built in a little bit of a cushion in our budget of $2,300, which we've just rolled in as an expense because we'll transfer that into reserves. So if you exclude that built-in cushion, our budget increase is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 4.6%. So I think a very reasonable budget increase given the inflationary pressures that we're seeing. A couple things to call out in those large percentage increases. We need to rebuild our web page, for one. So we've allocated some additional dollars to increase to invest in a redevelopment or redesign of our web page. And that is in the, let's see, which one? Yeah, outreach line item. But other than that, everything is fairly close to our goal of around 5%, except for salaries, which property, which we've increased by 10%, given some of the budgetary pressures we're seeing there, just to keep the building going, the maintenance, the plowing, all that. So you see we're estimating $410,000 in revenue in 2023 and $410,000 in expenses. So let me just pause there and see if you have any questions. Any questions or concerns on that? Otherwise, I'll go to the next section. The next section, which is right below that orange, sorry, you don't have a color copy. The next section is the non-budgeted Family of Christ income and giving. This is a kind of a derivative look at what I think is a real interesting and I think something we should be really proud of. And that's when we talk about our income, we talk about planned and budgeted income. That's the things that we get from the building and the things from congregational pledges. But we also have non-planned giving receipts, which is the noisy offering. It's the one-time giving for Tanzania. It's different project type giving. And you see on that line item we had $34,992,000 in congregational giving that was really unplanned or non-budgeted. And we have this every year, but this year it was the congregation really stepped up and donated a lot of money relative to years past. And those budget items are earmarked, and it's really a pass-through for the church. We get $1 in, and we pay out $1 to the designated beneficiary of that giving. And you see, we took in $34,992,000, and we paid out $34,653,000. And we'll pay out the rest. It's just a matter of timing. So it's that pass-through expense. And you see some of the details, some of the examples. It's not an all-inclusive list of where that money went. Big donations to Tanzania, a youth mission trip, and 360 communities, in addition to other charitable giving. Now you combine that unplanned giving with our budgeted benevolence, which is part of our 2022 and 2023 budget of $15,300. Our total church giving for 2022 was $49,953,000. So really tremendous giving this year. Last year in 2021, the church gave $37,000. So a big increase in congregational giving. So I think everyone should be proud of that. Any questions on that section? You're making this too easy here, so. Yeah, right. The last section, the bottom section on the sheet, is really a look at what I consider kind of the overall financial health of the church, not just in the current year, but how are we looking overall when you look at our assets. And I'll go over this section. Chuck may have some additional comments on the second sheet that was distributed. But if you look at things that we hold For designated spending or kind of rainy day funds, that's the reserves. And we've got a balance of $55,638 at the end of the year, and our capital, which is just slightly lower than where it started. We had some costs related to the sabbatical, Pastor Brent's sabbatical. And then the capital improvements funds was very consistent, or actually had an increase quite a bit, and so we have an ending balance of $48,800. So our total, I consider kind of a rainy day fund of $104,000, which is good. But I think when you add in the checking and savings, and of course these are all a little bit more up and down. These are the accounts we use to run the church, so there's variability there. Our general fund checking of $39,000 and our designated savings of $47,000. Now the checking goes up and down as you might expect, but it doesn't vary too much. It may go as low as like high 20s and it gets up to $50,000, but you can see we have a fairly solid base in our checking account, and our designated savings does not change that much at all. It stays at around $47,000. So my point in showing this is just to say that we've got this rainy day fund of $104,000 plus our kind of operational expense accounts of $86,000 for a total kind of liquid asset class of $191,000, which if you look at what most nonprofits recommend for rainy day funds, that's very healthy. That's about a 6-month cushion for us. So the financial health of the church, I think, is in pretty good shape, particularly from where we were, 5, 10 years ago. So I think everyone should be really proud of that. Let me just pause, and any questions on that? Chuck, did you want to say anything about the other sheet that was distributed as well? Just kind of a picture of all of our assets?
Brian covered a lot of things on the balance sheet already with the fund balances and stuff like that. The only thing I'll add is the Thrivent mortgage in the liabilities there. We've got $1,361,000. And thankfully, we refinanced that about a year ago, and it was a variable mortgage, and we locked in a fixed rate a year ago, which, if any of you have been following the news or not, the interest rates have gone up a lot in the last year, so we're very fortunate there to get a fixed rate for 15 years to pay off that mortgage. And so it was good timing there. I don't recall what the percent was, but it's in the 4s, yeah.
Was that a 15 to 0? Or was there
Nope, it's to 0, yeah. Yeah, our previous mortgage was variable rate, and it had a balloon at the end. And so two things we wanted to eliminate was the variable rate and the balloon. So this will pay it off fully in the 15, yeah.
Yeah, so the council members who managed through that was, a lot of foresight to lock in those rates before the interest went up, because if we had still had that variable rate, that would have been particularly painful. So, any questions on the budget, concerns?
Checked into it a year or two ago, and the things that were available were only like tenths of a percent.
Some things at 3.
And that's gotten better now, so that's probably something we'll check into.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is make sure that we don't lock it down where we can't take it out. So, those are yielding somewhere in the high 1s to low 2s. So I think there's opportunity to your point, Tommy.
Yeah, and some things it's like, we might lose a couple months if you have to pull it out, but
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And it would be important to point out that designated savings is not spendable money. That's the Tanzania funds, that's the scholarship funds, all those big funds below, that comprises them. So those are designated for those specific things.
But I do think it's worth, to your point, putting that on the agenda for the years. We were gonna put it into FTX, but, yeah, no, I think that's a great point, thanks.
Any other questions? If not, this will be, presented as part of the meeting, the annual meeting next week, but there'll be less detail given. So if you have any questions now or later, you can contact Pastor Brent or myself or David. So, yeah, what question? Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious of like, was there something planned that we thought we were gonna do that we didn't? Or what's the plan? I mean, I just don't know what that plan goes towards.
For a couple of years, our expenses were quite a bit under budget, but that was a youth position for salaries that we never filled for a couple of years, and so we got firmed that up of what we've done now with Dana and stuff. So that's why we're.
But you're talking stewardship, right?
The line item where it's like a variance of 376%. We budgeted.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the capital planning expense that we budgeted for and then decided not to do.
It was that class you had.
Yep.
Okay.
I can answer that.
Okay. There you go.
So the question is, the variance on this stewardship line. We held our budget to what it was 2 years ago. So we held our 2022 budget equal to 2021. And we had, in 2021, we had hired or participated in a consulting business, I guess you will, that ELCA had around stewardship and helping us organize how we, basically ask for money and to be more transparent and provide all that. So we put that in the budget, and then we ended up not using them in 2022, so that's why you see the variance. Yep.
Plus you had it outsourced all of the stewardship materials.
And we brought, yeah, so,
This year they were absorbed into.
yeah, yeah, so that's a great point. So what we learned, we basically, quote unquote, insourced instead of paying somebody else to do it for us. So, yeah, thanks. Yep.
Good questions. Anything else? Otherwise, I think we're in good shape, and look forward. Hopefully, you'll attend the meeting next week, and we'll get this approved.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Thank you.